The Rocky franchise is one of my favorite series of all time. I have loved a ton of these movies for quite a long time. They really inspire me. They've motivated me. Actually, some of the first reviews I ever posted on this channel was for the movies leading up to Creed 2. So it's kind of funny. Here we are now. That was 2018. Here we are 5 years later, which is crazy to think about. Not quite, but something around there. And I am so excited to sit down and talk about these movies. I rewatched them all over the past week, so I have seen a bunch of them multiple times. It's not just I've seen them all twice. I used to watch some of these movies all the time. Back in like 2017, 2018, I would watch Rocky 1, 2, 3, and 4 just over and over again with my friends. We were so big into them to the point where me and my one friend at the time actually made a Rocky training montage video. I'm going to link that up above here. And I also have a full review of Creed 3. So obviously this isn't a review of all of these films, but my full review of Creed 3 will be linked up above here and down below. But without further ado, let's get into it. You know what's coming in at number 9. That is, of course, Rocky 5. This is the clear low point of the franchise. Sylvester Stallone hates this movie. Majority of fans do. I am one of them. As I said, I love the Rocky movies. This is the one I do not like at all. I think it is a terrible movie. It is the only movie in the Rocky franchise where I don't like Sylvester Stallone as Rocky, because I don't like Rocky as a character, and it seems like they took all the little things that Rocky really pushes a line with and just cranked them to the max. I like the idea that they were going with his son. I like some of those scenes, and there is one scene that I do think is fantastic in this movie, and that is the Mickey scene, that flashback sequence, but everything else is dreadful. It is boring. Tommy Gunn is an awful character, and it leads to just a stupid, just a dumb ending, which may be satisfying, but it's the most predictable one here. I could probably talk for 2 hours about how much I hate this movie, but I'd rather move on to a better movie. So there's a big gap here, but coming in at number 8 is the newly released Creed 3. Now, I could go back and forth on this one and the next one, just because I've only seen this one once, and I do have a full review of it, as I said, like 3 or 4 times, but I enjoyed this one a lot more than most people. It seems to be dividing people quite a bit. There is a clear absence here. Not having Rocky in this movie is felt, especially towards the third act, and the action scenes, or the boxing scenes I should say, are hit and miss. I like the idea of it, and you can see the other influences, one of the main ones obviously being anime, but sometimes they really hold on kind of fantastical sequences for too long, to the point where you kind of get lost and it feels overdone. Although I love the idea of how this film is talking about how past trauma can come back to haunt you. I thought the Michael B. Jordan was great. I actually really enjoyed his direction. Sometimes it could be a bit jarring in the fight scenes and the editing and stuff like that, but it was a nice choice. As I said in my review, you can tell a difference between all the directors of the Creed movies, which I really do enjoy. So there are some faults with this movie, but overall, I really enjoyed it. Coming in at number 7 is Rocky 3. Now, Rocky 3 is an awesome movie. As I've said, I've seen it well over 10 times, probably around 15 times. I really enjoyed. Is it dumb? Is it cheesy? Yes, this is the point in the franchise where it starts to get a little cheesy. I mean, Hulk Hogan's in the movie, do you have to say more? But that scene is awesome. It's just pure fun and wouldn't ever happen, but it's just so much fun. Now, Mr. T as Clubber Lang is kind of an annoying character, and Mr. T is a very bad actor, but it makes sense for the rest of the movie, and I feel like this would have been such a difficult movie for Stallone to make, because Rocky 1, whatever, he wrote that. Rocky 2, easy, direct follow-up, picks up right where the last one left off. What do you do for number 3 when Rocky's been all fixed up and stuff? You introduce someone new, and I thought for the most part it was done pretty well. Now, obviously, I've seen this movie so many times that I really enjoy it, probably more than people who watch it for the first time. It's cheesy, it's fun, it's pretty badass, and Stallone is absolutely shredded here as well. Coming in at number 6 is Rocky Balboa from 2006. That's a little bit ironic there, and it feels so weird having so many of these great movies sound like they're so low, but as I said, I really love this one. This one is fantastic. Now, the only reason why this film is lower down than some of the other ones is just because it's a little bit more forgettable than the other ones. I mean, you've all seen that one scene, about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That whole scene, it's fantastic. There are a bunch of other quotes that are so inspirational. Is the ending a little bit unrealistic, how they can actually match up against each other? Yes, but it's just a nice kind of comeback to the series, especially after Rocky 5, which leaves such a sour taste in your mouth. You come back to this one, it is somber, it is emotional, and dealing with what happens with other characters in this movie, I think it's really great. Sure, the villain isn't amazing, but when watching it again, I kind of found a new appreciation for that side of the movie, and it's not really about that, it's really about Rocky. Personally, I thought Stallone was great. This movie is just awesome overall. Some choices will annoy people, like to have the ending look like it was actually on TV. I like it for the most part, but I understand the criticisms. Now, coming in at number 5 is Rocky 2. Now, I had to go back and check that I included all the movies on here, because I was like, how is Rocky 2 coming in at number 5? This movie is awesome. When I was watching these movies over and over again, as I said, like years ago, this one and the first one were right up against each other, and I still think it is quite amazing. The only reason it gets a little bit lower down is because it loses its focus a little bit, kind of end of first act, start of second act. There's kind of all that time dealing with the fame and all the money that isn't as interesting as the Apollo and Rocky clash that's in this movie, but the ending fight is quite possibly the best in the entire franchise. At least if I'm thinking right now, I would say that it probably is. There are so many beautiful moments here. I love the way that they build on Rocky and Adrian's connection. She's still so shy, and it's very different from what we get from her in the future, so it's kind of a nice connector between the first one where she barely says a word and the other ones where she's fully confident, and all the acting's great. As I said, the fight scenes are just amazing. You can't really see any cameras in the audience like the first one, so that's kind of fun, but this movie is a little bit slower in kind of the second-ish act, as I said, and maybe if they cut 10, 15 minutes, it'd be a little bit higher up, but I still adore this movie. I could watch this movie 10 more times and not like it any less. Coming in number 4 is a fan favorite, Rocky 4. I absolutely love this movie. I am talking about the original cut. I have not seen the newer release cut. I think it was 2021 when that was put out. I still haven't seen it. I would like to, but I've always loved this movie. Most people love this movie if you're a fan of the Rocky franchise, or you think it's just absolutely cheesy and bad, like Ben from Meter's Reviews, but I love this movie, okay. There's actually a calculation to say how much of this movie is montages, clearly. I'll put that up here, I forget what it is, but it was on IMDb. Now, personally, I don't really feel that so much. I really love this movie. There are so many just amazing workout sequences like in these montages where I'm watching. I was like, how is he doing that? But still, there's an underlying story here about loss and how you're gonna get it. It's really a revenge story, and the scene of the death, I could say, is very sad to me. I know some people are like, oh, it's cheesy editing, whatever, but it's very sad to me still. It obviously sets up some of the other films in the future, and then that final fight, so intense to the point where you, even though you expect you know what to happen, I honestly still at times, I'm like, I don't know if they're going to make Drago win or if they're going to make Rocky win. I love this film. It's iconic. It's awesome. And it's so much fun. Coming in number 3, we have Creed 2. Now, Creed 2 is such a sad and just dreary film, but it's still so uplifting in the end. This film, right from the opening, you can tell that they are setting the tone here. I love this film so much. It is definitely the saddest film in the entire franchise because of some other things that happen throughout. If you've seen it, you know what it is. I'm not going to spoil any of these movies, but the whole training montage here is absolutely fantastic. It's really like a rebirth, like just rebuilding yourself. I thought Stallone, once again, was great, and Michael B. Jordan kills it as Adonis Creed. It's nice that this one picks up right off, but it doesn't take anything away from the first one and doesn't feel like it's just a clear ending. And of course, the whole story, I can't talk about this movie without talking about the fact that it's Creed versus Drago. Again, you're fighting a man whose dad killed your dad. I mean, that is so sad, and you can feel it in every punch. Just really feels emotional. It connects with me. I don't know. I watched this film a few nights ago. The only tiny little complaint I have is that kind of weirdly, like Rocky 2, there's a little bit in the middle that kind of loses me a bit. But this film really is something. Coming in at number 2, we have Creed. Now, I always see people switch their first and second, but Creed is a solid number 2 for me. This is one of my favorite sports films of all time, not just of the past last 10 years, just of all time. It is a perfect legacy sequel, as people call it. I've seen a bunch of videos where people call it that. This is one that everybody loves, even if you kind of missed the Rocky movies when you were younger and you go back and watch Creed. I find that a lot of people love this one, and a big thing of that is Ryan Coogler's phenomenal direction. I think this is probably the best directed movie in this entire franchise. I thought he did a fantastic job, whether that be the one-take fight sequences or how he directs his actors. And Sylvester Stallone does not get enough praise from people. He is so good. You have your action stars from there, and then you have Sylvester Stallone, who even in the original Rocky was killing it. But this one, you know, the scenes I'm talking about are great, and if you're gonna fight, I'm gonna fight. I mean, so many sequences like that, and just one line that has never ever left my head is, "What cloud?" Off the top of my head, I can't remember the villain's name or the other fighter's name, but this movie, once again, is not really about that. It's kind of like Rocky Balboa. It is not about who he's fighting. It's just about Creed, or Adonis Creed, really bringing that in him and discovering stuff about himself, and even it helps to progress Rocky in the future. Even, you know, what's that, 7 films into the franchise? It's pretty great, but nothing for me will ever come close to number 1, which is Rocky. This is one of my favorite films of all time. This is my favorite sports film of all time. It's just top tier. And I have always loved this film. The first time I saw it, I remember thinking, wow, that was so different from what I expected. You know, you hear about Rocky, and I watched this when I was quite young, but you hear all this stuff about Rocky, and it's like, oh, the fight really only lasts, I think, maybe under 20 minutes, under 25 minutes, if that. I think it's like 18 minutes long or something like that. And it's still so impactful because most of the great sports movies out there are not really about the sport, it's about the characters. Rocky Balboa is one of my favorite characters of all time, but I love how this builds on the awkward and almost uncomfortable connection between him and Adrian, and of course the ending is iconic, but it's one of those sports movies that technically doesn't have a happy ending, but that doesn't matter. I mean, Rocky isn't focused on it, and this is probably one of, if not the most iconic underdog story out there. It's just, it seems like such a simple idea, but especially hearing the story behind of what Stallone had to do, what he did before this movie, and selling his dog and buying it back, and the whole process of this, they made it for such a low budget, and yes, you can see the cameras in the audience, and it's just, I don't know, it's one of those movies that means so much to me. I will never see another film from this franchise pass it. This is one of my favorites of all time, as I said, but how would you rank the Rocky and Creed franchise? I just call it the Rocky franchise because it is easier. Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to check out that other video, and in a few days, I will have a video talking about all the training montages from this franchise. Thank you all for watching. I will see you guys next time. Over and out.